This point took me a while to understand because I have more of an engineering brain and I see the world mostly in terms of facts, I thought. But I believe postmodernists have a point when they basically claim that all reality is mediated through narrative. So when we look at the world, we don't perceive facts, but we perceive symbols. We don't see people, as biological entities with their biological properties, but we see people as representing something. Symbols represent something else, something that they themselves are not. They stand in, they are placeholders for something else. And this is how the world becomes relevant to us and how we feel that something is close to us and something else is indifferent and foreign and irrelevant to us. Take the example of the boxer of the last Olympics. I think Iman Khalif was her name. It's not just a matter of biology, not just a matter of facthood, if you want, when you look at the phenomenon of what she stood in for. But one side very clearly took her to be a symbol of emancipation, of someone who is growing up in a culture where it is not typical for a female to take up a sport like boxing, for example. So some took her as a symbol of female emancipation, of going against the grain of your own culture and finding what you're good at, what you want to passionately do, and expressing that, while the other side was seeing that as a proof that people are beating up women in the West. This is simplified. Of course, you had far more positions on this issue, but the important thing is it was not about facts. It was about what the boxer actually represented, the symbolic nature of the boxer. And this is what made the situation relevant for us as human beings, because we saw her as a phenomenon, as representative of something else, of something, for example, that is either dangerous and something that we don't want to become reality, and the proof that the other side is degenerate, or as something that we want to strive for, emancipation in this case. And this is the general way in which we perceive reality. So even when we're faced with the suffering of other people, we don't see them as people, as human beings. We don't perceive them the way we perceive our relatives and people we have spent time with, where we have a clear bonding already established, a relationship with others, where a loss of a person is something that is always significant. We don't see other people that are outside of our immediate circle of concerns as humans, but we see them as symbols, and this is how they become relevant to us. And this is at first confusing because we think intuitively, I believe, that we are resonating with the humanity of the person. So if somebody's suffering and we show some form of empathy, we think it is because we're connected to their humanity. But what we are actually connected to is not their humanity, but them as representing something that is relevant to us. And this is clearly shown when you look at studies which look at how we emotionally respond to the suffering of others when it's represented through numbers. We can't establish a meaningful relationship to numbers. So the higher the number doesn't really increase the suffering that we experience, the higher number of people that are suffering. But what increases the suffering and the emphatic reaction is actually if the other side, if the individual suffering stands in for something or represents something that we value and we find to be important. And this is, again, it's counterintuitive because the felt immediate reaction is that I am suffering with this person, this very person, because of their humanity. But if this was the case, we would equally have to suffer for each and every single individual who suffered and died in human history. And that's not how human minds work. This is not how human emotion works in general. So I think we're lying here to ourselves. The reality of it is we are experiencing certain pain as to be more intense when we are encountering the suffering of others, when it's related to our own cause, if you want, or when it's related to our own worldview and our own framework of reference and relevance, while we experience it as more distance and just a number, when it's not really related to our own worldview. And this seems, I think, a point that postmodernists actually got right. Reality is mediated through narrative, and narrative is the thing that through symbolic, if you want, substitution, we replace the individual with their symbolic value and with what they stand in for symbolically. This is how we perceive reality as a whole, and this is how we make reality relevant to us in the first place. And this is even something that you can see within the different academic disciplines, where you have different tribal wars going on between different paradigms. There it's the same thing. We don't see the other side making factual statements, but we see those factual statements represent something. So be symbolic of something that we either think we support or we don't. So the tribal aspect of it, the narrative aspect of it, is always involved when we're making truth claims about reality. They're always embedded, as Wilber actually puts it, in a second person quadrant. They're always part of a second person reality, whether we like it or not.